It cost us $15 million to manage the waste for the Regional District of Nanaimo. And there's a plan in the works to figure out how to manage it for the next 10 years. On our topic today is the management of our waste, and our guest is Larry Gardner. He was the manager for solid waste for the Regional District of Nanaimo. Thank you for joining us today on Upfront.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Now, people don't think about this, but garbage is actually, it's a business. It's either going to cost you money or it can make you money.
It's remarkable. Especially over the last 30 years, if you think back 30 years ago, everything went to the landfill. Now, if you look at the number of recyclables, it's significant. Electronics, light bulbs, batteries, it's multi-million-dollar business. A lot of that material is managed like commodities, like the products that we purchase. It's changed remarkably in 30 years, and we're hoping we can change that a bit more.
Well, I know that a lot of it's being diverted as it is, and you say that's basically being transported and picked up by somebody else. We're good at recycling, basically. So we take everything, those 5 recycling facilities in town, the electronics, and then those businesses get money for that. But
that's correct.
That saves our landfill, but does that not also create a problem for us with our landfill management?
Yes and no. So are we good at recycling? We're actually, in this regional district, we're as good as it gets in the world. If you look anywhere else, our per capita disposal, the amount of waste each person disposes of, is as low as it gets really anywhere. We've done remarkable in this area. In the end, we still need a landfill. We probably will need a disposal facility for the foreseeable future, and there is a cost to managing that and running that. So as we get better at diversion, we still have to operate that facility. We need to access funds to be able to still manage a facility, and that'll be through taxation. So taxation will go up a bit to recover those lost revenues from the material that gets recycled.
Obviously, we can't recycle everything, as you said, so we need to have stuff that's put into a landfill. Right now, is the garbage coming mostly from us as individuals and residences, or is it garbage that's coming from, like, where's it all coming from? What's going in there, I guess?
So single family residents do a very, very good job of recycling. We can still do better. There's still opportunity to improve what comes from single family residents. But right now, they do a remarkable job. We get great participation. That's partly because they have a reasonably convenient system for recycling. They have a garbage bin, they have a recycle bin, and they have an organics bin. That doesn't exist, or it's sporadic with commercial, with businesses, with institutional, with multifamily residents. It's sporadic. There's some that might choose to have that level of service, but many don't. So as a result, much more of their waste ends up in the landfill, and a lot less gets recycled.
So let's talk about just some basics. How big is our landfill?
How big? In terms of hectares? So you stumped me.
Acres, I mean, is it a mile wide, 2 miles kind of thing? We know it's big.
I have in my mind it's 14 hectares, but I'm like, that's just...
It's a big landfill.
Yeah, it's 500 meters by 1,000 meters.
And how much capacity does it have? I mean, you're looking at some of I look at the words. It says the landfill includes the evaluation of available airspace for filling. What does that mean?
Okay, so we know what the landfill is going to look like when it's finished, right? We've figured out what it's going to look like, the final shape of it. So we know how much space is under that cap or under that cover. We know how much waste we get coming in every year, and it varies somewhat, but from the amount we have coming in to the space we know is available, we know how long the landfill will last. And right now we're looking at somewhere around 30 years.
That's as long as we keep diverting and there's still a market for those other recyclable items?
Right, so based on what we're doing now and based on what we're expecting for population growth and all those different pieces, that's about how long we expect the landfill to last, and it'll be full. If we do better at diversion, better at recycling, we could add another 10 or 15 years to the life of that site, depending on how quick and how good we do it at diversion.
Now, you're working on a 10-year plan, but what in that plan, like I said, there's lots of variables. So what is the life of the landfill? Could it be 50 years? Could it be that 10 years, or where are we at?
So if we continue to do what we're doing right now, so we've got about 68% diversion. What does that mean? Well, we started tracking in the 80s, so we figured out how much waste we've diverted since the 80s, and we're about 68%. We're trying to get to 90% diversion. And I can tell you what that means in actual real numbers, but it's a significant improvement, huge. So if we can actually achieve that 90%, we'll turn the landfill into a 45-year life instead of a 30-year life. That's the target.
I don't think we'll ever get to a zero waste is what you keep saying. That's the target goal, zero waste. Is that a reality? Like you say, we'll always need it. There's certain things that have to go in there because there is no market for it.
Is zero waste a reality? Honestly, I don't think so in our lifetime. There might be definitely beyond. I think there is opportunity. Again, if we roll back the clock 30 years, people would not have even conceived of the materials that currently get recycled. So as we continue to push innovation, might we get there? Yeah, I think we might. Could we get to a 90% diversion in 10 years? I think it's possible. Keep in mind, I said we're as good as it gets in the world right now. 90% diversion equates to about 109 kilograms per person per year. Right now we're about 350. So it's reducing the amount that everyone generates to a third. It's quite a remarkable target.
But we, as individual residents, as homeowners in houses, we divert more than, say, an apartment building does. So not all apartment buildings play by the same rules. They've got a dumpster, everything goes in, or they recycle, they don't recycle. Is that where a lot of the focus is on this management plan, is to try and get all of those and the commercial to start doing better at managing? Absolutely.
So we do hope to improve, and we can, what's happening with single-family residents, and that's primarily with encouraging people to use the programs, carrying out education. But really, the focus of the plan is to target the commercial sector, the institutional sector, and the multifamily residences. And the way we want to do that, right now, if you live in a single-family residence, you have the 3-bin service. You don't have any choice. If you live in a single-family residence, you have to participate in that service. You don't actually have to use it, but we do encourage people to. But most people, because they're paying for the service, they participate in it. So we're looking at doing the same for all of the other businesses, actually require them, all the businesses, multifamily units, to have 3 containers, organics, recycling, and garbage. And again, on the premise that if they have to have those services, they're more likely to use it. It's interesting, we regularly get calls from multifamily residences, from individuals that live in multifamily buildings, apartment buildings and stratas and whatever, and ask why they don't have that service. There's an awful lot of people that want it, but right now it's up to the apartment building owner or up to the strata council to choose whether they decide to have those multiple bins, and often they don't right now.
Because there's a cost involved, obviously, because it's going to have to pay for an individual hauler, because you're not coming curbside to pick up from those apartment buildings or those businesses. So how do you try to even the playing field so that there is an incentive for those apartment or strata or business to do the same things that we do otherwise?
So there's a couple of things that we want to do. One is we would, by bylaw, require every business to have, and multifamily, to have multiple bins. So just by virtue of them having to have those, then they don't really have the option to go to the lowest cost provider that only is providing the garbage truck, right? They have to have that service. The second thing that we're looking at doing is we'd like to license waste haulers. So those are the people that pick up and transport garbage. The reason we'd like to license them is we'd actually like to give them a lower tipping fee at the landfill. So right now we charge $125 a ton for everybody coming in, as well as any waste hauler. Well, right now for them to actually get the waste, they can't beat us on price because their cost for disposal is the same. We actually want to reduce their cost so that we can have the waste start to flow to the industry before it comes to us at the landfill. But a third of the waste we get comes from self-haul customers, people bringing it directly. We'd like it to flow through industry. Why would we like it to do that? They're actually better at recycling than we are. They're more flexible, more innovative.
Sorry for interrupting, but when you talk about flow through industry, are we talking about the businesses that do the wood separation, the metal, those kind of ones that exist around town? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. But what we'd like to do is expand the materials that they try to attract. In this regional district, we've got a very robust waste management industry. And part of it is we, as the regional district, provide less waste management services than a lot of other local governments. And we really rely on industry to provide those. And we've done a really good job of fostering that industry to provide those services. So what we want to do is just build on that and have them actually expand the kinds of commodities that they're taking in recycling. So if we can have the waste flow through their industry, we're more likely to be able to do that. We're also looking at, and here's where it gets a little bit more complicated, is actually charging them a disposal levy. We still want to reduce their costs so waste flows to them, but we want to incent the industry to actually divert than dispose. We want to make it more profitable for diversion than disposal.
And see, diversion basically is exporting those recyclable goods elsewhere out of our area.
No, not necessarily taking the recyclable goods out of our area. Fabulous if we can actually have them recycled and reused here. And a good example of that is the organics processing facility, Nanaimo Organic Waste. It processes our food waste locally. The more that happens locally, the better it is for our economy, right? More jobs. So when I say diversion from the landfill, right? Whether it's used locally would be fabulous, but diversion from the landfill versus disposal.
So what opportunities are there to utilize that stuff here in our community? I mean, do we have a place that can melt down the metal that can be reused and remanufactured? Do we have a place that takes the plastics that can be respun, or the bottles and other things? There's no glass crushing facility in BC or recycling, so stuff like that has to go even out of province.
Some does, for sure. So one of the really good ones is organics processing all the food waste. I gave the example in Nanaimo Organic Waste. And the largest part of the waste stream is the organics. So hopefully we would see that continue to be composted and the final compost used locally. A lot of the other materials that you talked about, there has been a lot of recyclables have been shipped to Asia, China in particularly, over the last decade or more. China's recently developed a program called National Sword, and they're being much more restrictive on what they let into their country for recycling. I think as a result, what we're going to see is much more focus on building domestic processing. And actually, we're pretty fortunate in BC, like plastics, for example, are processed by Merlin Plastics, which is a local BC company, and they make plastic pellets, and they sell it. They sell the pellets internationally for remolding into new plastic products.
Recycling is a whole other topic, but going back to the managing the waste stuff and the incentives, it sounds very complicated. So how do you engage with the industry, with the apartment owners, with the strata, with everybody to start working out this plan together so that it is cost effective, not just for us as taxpayers for it, but for them as well?
There's a challenge.
You're laughing at that.
No, it's complicated. And everybody has an opinion. It's amazing people's interest in dealing with waste. But we have been working with a committee, which is representatives of our community in business, public representatives, agencies, representatives. We've been working with them over the last couple of years, looking at all the nuts and bolts of our program and how we can improve it. So they've guided the process to date. We've come up with a plan, which is available on our website, and I would encourage anyone to take a look at. So we've come up with the concept now, and we're shopping that around. We've done a number of community open houses. We've reached out to, we've actually had quite a bit of media interest. We've reached out to a number of stakeholder groups, and actually I have a meeting coming up with the waste industry to talk about this licensing scheme and get their feedback on it.
What has the reactions been so far to what is being proposed or what is being sent out as the options to look at for the RDN?
So far, overall, it's been fairly positive. We would definitely, it's hard to develop services that meets everybody's needs. So we definitely hear from individuals, well, I would like to see this or that. I would like to see glass collection, or I'd like to see yard waste collection. But overall, when we've explained why some of those programs haven't been supported or have been supported, we've had a great level of understanding of that. And I think overall it's been fairly supportive. I can say though, the waste industry is tentative about the licensing scheme. They, in general, they don't feel that, their industry needs to be regulated in that way. So we'll see.
There's healthy competition, at least in the waste companies around that there are available here and the places we can take stuff. Obviously, we'd like to see more, as you said, like glass at the yard, at the curbside, or the yard waste. And there's always the concerns too that if you start raising the tipping fees for people, you're going to end up with more dumping out in the woods. And we've got issues around our whole region where people are taking their waste and just leaving it.
I honestly, for me, I think the illegal dumping is overstated. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I used to work for Ministry of Environment, so I was involved in a number of responses to littering events. When there were landfills on every corner and they were open 24 hours, 7 days a week, there was lots of illegal dumping. And quite honestly, I think there's less now than there was 30 years ago. What's really changed in my view is 30 years ago, people would see some illegally dumped material and drive by it and go, well, that's pretty bad, and they just keep going. Now, at least in our regional district, the community support we have for community groups and individuals actually cleaning up materials, and we're happy to waive the tipping fee when they bring it to our landfill to do that. But the community support and people taking ownership and stewardship of their community is quite remarkable. And that's the biggest difference I've seen over the 30 years. I don't think there's more dumping. I do think there's more cleanup by people committed to their community.
You always hear the worry that you make it more expensive or make it harder to dispose of things. That's when it ends up in the woods or somewhere else because you can't get rid of it. But in the time that we have left, Larry, I think maybe we should go back over the scenarios that have been thought of for the landfill and briefly explain what the options might be so we can rehash, where you're looking at in this plan and where you want to be with it.
So with the plan, number of things that we continue to do, like improved education, which we do now, advocacy for like stewardship programs, like batteries, electronics, those sorts of things. So there's a number of things that we currently do that we want to build on. But the two main pieces of the plan are to actually require by bylaw that every business, single-family residence has multiple bins. And then the second piece is licensing waste haulers, giving them a fee differential, a reduced fee at the landfill, and a disposal levy to encourage recycling. We want to make recycling more profitable than disposal. As a result, we're hoping to grow the industry, so there's more competition for waste. As we get more competition, you and I get better services because there's more businesses providing service. We get better convenience. More convenience leads to better recycling. And as we grow that business, it's good for our economy. We get jobs. So that's what we're really working on. And that's what's a little bit unique about our approach is we're trying to build an economic model so businesses thrive and provide services rather than government providing them directly.
What kind of things can change to make it simpler and less complicated for us to recycle? All the rules are you can have this kind of plastic, well, you got to take off the part of the Ziploc bag. You can't put that. This has to go in this container, this one in this. My garage has got 7 different containers. Make it simple.
Make it simple. That's admirable goal. So as local government, we don't have the ability to influence consumer products. We can work, that's part of the advocacy piece, to work with other levels of government to try to improve some more commonality in packaging and materials. A bunch of the stewardship programs are driving that because it's making it easier for the generators to actually look at end of life of those materials. So it is a challenge. Some of the little things that we can do, though, we do have the RDN curbside app, and it has what goes where. And if you take a look on that, it'll tell you where you can take pretty much any of the material. As far as taking some of the complexity out of it, we try not to adjust our program any more than we have to, so people get used to, common trends and themes. But we live in a complicated world. Everything from, finance to purchase of products is complicated. Disposing of waste will probably continue to be complicated.
How much does the RDN work with, ministerial or provincial, I guess, incentives to try and encourage the startup of these types of businesses that you're talking about that would take the waste that we're trying to divert from going into the landfill when there is another use for it?
Definitely our regional district is very active in that, and we do it either direct communications with the province, but we belong to a number of other associations like the BC Product Stewardship Council, the RCBC Recycling Society of British Columbia, CWMA, Coast Waste Management Association. So we take advantage of the participation with other groups and other municipalities to be a collective voice for promoting some of these programs. So some of the things we'd like to see is improvements on like textiles or like mattresses is kind of a natural first stewardship program where we put the responsibility on the end of life of mattresses on the producer and the consumer. That's something that we're encouraging the province to expand. We'll see if it happens. I think over time we're going to see improvements to the existing programs and an expansion of them.
Is there ever a scenario that was imagined, like some communities in the world, everything is picked up, nothing is sorted, it's just picked up and it's sorted in a facility after it gets to the end. So there's better diversion practices because we're obviously not very good at making sure everything stays out of the garbage.
That's a fabulous question, and for $16 to $20 million we could do that. So there's kind of two paths to high levels of diversion. One is you source separate the material and you try to get high value recyclables. And that, when I say source separation, that's you and I and individually source separated, because that's when you get your highest value recyclables. The other way is you collect it and you have the machine sort it. You get less high value recyclables and you really are more likely to get more material that is amenable to waste energy facility. It's where a lot of material is actually used as a fuel. Mm-hmm. So you definitely can, so you can recover the energy from it, and you can, which still counts as diversion, so you can get high levels of diversion, but it's not as valuable as, as a recycled repurpose of or remanufacture of those original materials. They are different paths. The machine to sort is an expensive path. We probably can't afford it.
Might solve some of the problems, though. It's like you put the money into the landfill operation or put the money into the sorting facility that deals with it to give you the life. I mean, as you say, it's a complicated equation.
No, it is a very complicated equation. Keep in mind, I mentioned we're doing as well as anybody in the world. We're doing the best, actually. And we largely rely on source separation. We believe the model we developed can far further expand that. And as a result, I think we'll see more benefit both environmentally and economically at a lower cost than we would be going the machine sorting route. But that is something that we did look at in our plan, and if people would like us to pursue that, we're happy to relook at it.
So you've had public consultations. Are they pretty much over?
We've completed all of our community open houses. We will be spending some time with all of the municipal councils. We still are inviting feedback. We're working on a survey, so we're still trying to get the message out and trying to get feedback. So we're not over the consultation yet. And
what is the implementation date that's anticipated for the new strategy?
We're hoping that we can get this to the board. To our board to approve early in next year. so in the first quarter for sure. And if our board does support it, then it would go to Ministry of Environment for approval. Hopefully we would see a turnaround from them in the 3 to 6 month range, and that would allow us to start building the new programs into the following year's budget.
And all of this encompasses all of the regional district. We're saying Bowser right through. It's everybody's garbage that's going in there, commercial, residential.
That's correct. It's the whole regional district. Everybody has a part to play.
And every municipality has a part to play with you in making it work together.
Yeah, and our relationship with all the member municipalities are fabulous. So for curbside collection, for example, the city of Nanaimo provides curbside collection directly. We look after it with the rest of the regional district, but we work very close with the city on their programs. They are looking at their sort, toss, roll, the large containers, and that's a change to their system, which will be different than our curbside collection system. I'm quite excited about it because it's an opportunity for me to learn and see how it goes within the city, because we will be looking at a new contract for our curbside collection in a couple of years, and need to take a look at if we should be making any adjustments to what we currently have.
So the same kind of thing might stretch out to all the areas if it's cost effective and if it works for the other communities. Yeah.
Exactly. Quite possibly. Anytime you make a change, the large bins tend to be a little bit more convenient for the urban centers, often are less desirable in the rural areas. You can get more contamination in your recyclables. So there's trade-offs with all of it.
There's a lot to learn about solid waste management, and you did mention that there's a great little video that's on the web as well as a survey. So I encourage everybody to look into what happens with our garbage. We're all part of the solution to what happens to it and how long we've got for the landfill. Thank you very much, Larry Gardner from the RDN, for being here with us to talk about solid waste management and where we're looking in the future. It's been a pleasure having you here today.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching, and we'll be back again next month with another topic of concern to you on Upfront.